Hey guys, this is Sarah, and I'm going to go over. First, I'm just going to go over kind of the basics of how to read an EKG, and then I think I'm probably going to make several smaller videos so that people can just see the things that they need to see. So, and I found a kind of like a PowerPoint online about all of it and printed pages from it. So I'll try to remember to post that link to wherever I found it after I do this, but. Anywho, so um, this is the basics, like the first things you have to learn whenever you're doing an EKG. And I made a little drawing down here in the corner. When you read an EKG, there's always like white at the top and it says stuff, and then there's all the red stuff. So every one of these big boxes, like this one, equals zero point 0.2 seconds. And each big box is broken down into itty bitty boxes, and those are all 0.04 seconds. And then when you're going up and down, that is each one of those little boxes is a millimeter, and that's mostly important whenever you're looking at elevation, because to have ST elevation for a STEMI, the elevation needs to be greater than 1 millimeter, and it needs to be in two consecutive areas, which I'll discuss in a few minutes. And then the other basics are that you always have a PQRST. Occasionally you'll have a U wave, but that's not standard. So the P always comes first, a little bump, and then a QRS. The Q is the first down stroke. R is when it goes up. S is when it goes back down, and then it levels off, and you have a T bump every time. And, I bet I can pause between pages. Hold up. Okay, this page shows, so this is the standard QRS, but you don't always have an entire QRS. So if it goes down and then up but doesn't bump down again, that's just a QR. If it only goes down and up, QS. This is a RS because it doesn't have a Q. The Q would be here. And this is just an R because there's nothing down. So Q, first downbeat, R, first upbeat, S, second downbeat. Didn't really like this page because these lines are so thick that you can't see much, so I made another little one down here. So this is kind of where your baseline is, and that's where you're going to be looking for elevation or depression. Every beat starts with a P, and that's that little bump, and then you have the little space, and then the QRS, and then the T. When they're talking about PR intervals, it's the time between right here and right here, and that's counted out in the milliseconds, like we were talking about before. And then the QRS goes from here to here. It's normally very short. And then there's the ST interval, which goes from this line to about right there. And I kind of adjusted here because the times that are important that you really need to know is the PR interval. I normally don't see it called PRI. It's just called PR interval. And that's from there to there. It needs to be 0.12 to 0.2. And remember, 0.2 is one box of 5. So normal is 0.12, which is 3 boxes to 5. If it's shorter than that, then you're going to say there's a short PR interval, and if it's longer than 0.2, then long PR interval, which both mean different things. QRS is from there to there, and the normal for that is less than 0.12. So it should always be less than 3 boxes to be normal. And they put the QT interval on here. That is important because patients that might have a longer QT have a risk of having an R on T, especially if they become tachycardic, and a lot of medications affect that. Pause. All right. And here's an example of this one. That other one probably is too. This is an example of normal sinus rhythm. To have normal sinus rhythm, it has to have a P, QRS, and a T. The rate has to be regular, so if you were to take calipers and measure that off, it's got to be the same distance each time. And then there's one more thing. Oh, and it has to be between 60 and 100 beats per minute. So a lot of times we call stuff normal sinus rhythm, but it's not really normal sinus rhythm. It might just be sinus rhythm because it's mostly this, but not always this. And of course, let's see, you can see that one on the bottom too. Whoop, right there. It kind of has a higher T wave, which is indicative of hyperkalemia. And then see the P waves are really funky looking here, but they're still P waves. So there's that. I should have mentioned this on the other one, but the top one here, it has some ST depression, because see how the segment between the S and the end of the T is lower than the baseline? So that's ST depression. Still sinus rhythm, but ST depression. And then this is sinus Brady. That's all that means, is it has all the bits, QRST. Has to be regular, but it's less than 60 beats per minute. And there's another couple of examples right there. It's pretty easy to pick out because it's just normal but really slow. And sinus tach is the opposite, greater than 100, but it has to have a PQRST. Sometimes the faster it is, the harder it is to sometimes differentiate the P waves from the T waves, but there's the T, there's the P, there's the T, and there's the P. And here's another couple of examples of that. So if you see this one, a lot of times on tests they'll make it kind of look like this, so it's obvious where the T and the P are. The only thing that this can be confused with is if you have A flutter, 2-to-1 A flutter, it looks almost exactly like that, and it fools a lot of people. So, but if they put it on a test, it's probably going to be, this is sinus tach. Okay, am I rolling? Okay. And so that was it for the sinus rhythms and just the basics of how to read an EKG. So I'm going to make a different video for ventricular rhythms, and then we'll do one for atrial rhythms, and then we'll do ones for like oddities. And if you have any questions, just put them in this little thingy, that we're in. Boop, the little discussion post, and I'll see if I can answer them. All right, thanks, bye.